across the line. He fires wide of the Washington net. Now Blum comes in. Here come the Bruins back on the play. Neely racing down the right wing. And Corvo does the job, sending it all the way down the ice. Campbell's back to get it. He touches it first. Icing is called, and Leach hustling in there with Campbell. Bumped him on the icing play, and now some pushing and shoving starts in the aftermath. Mike Noeth trying to keep the players out of there. The linesmen are pulling them apart.
Dropped the gloves.
John Blum is in a hurry to get something going, and Corvo starts to hammer him. Here's Corvo and Blum pulls him down to the ice. But I'll tell you, Ivan Corvo got the better of that in the early going, throwing some uppercuts to former Capital John Blum.
Mike, this all started with Corvo and Blum when Blum ran Michael Pavanka with no call. Corvo exchanged words with Blum as Blum was skating by the Capitals bench. Blum gave him a little smile, and you knew something was going on. Now Scott Stevens has dropped the gloves. He's wrestling out there with Burridge. Hatcher has got Casper. A couple size mismatches favoring the Capitals here, although Stephen Leach has got a pretty big fellow in Campbell to deal with.
Scott Stevens is the next one that's going to get going here as he and Burridge are wrestling in the corner, and I think Scott's trying to do a good thing. Oh, now here's a shot thrown by Wade Campbell, and that was on top of Steve Leach, and Leach is wrestling with him, and Steve just holding on, which is about all he can do there. And Campbell's not really hurting him, just lying on him.
Now Hatcher's got to watch out. He reached an arm in there to try and pull Campbell off. Very close to third man in that situation.
Stevens was trying to push Burridge into the pile so as not to start another fight, but just to keep everybody together. And that's when Campbell reached out and tried to cork Leach one. And Hunter is now still tied up in there with Crowder. And the linesmen have got their hands full in trying to pull this one apart. Ray Scapanello is standing over Campbell, who is on top of Leach, and Scapanello now gives up on that. The Capitals aren't going to like that. They want to break up Campbell and Leach so that Leach doesn't get hurt under a much bigger opponent. Stevens is trying to get away from Burridge to help out, but the linesmen are not able to do anything. There just aren't enough officials out there.
At this point, Campbell isn't throwing any punches, but he still has Leach in a great disadvantage. Mike Noeth, the referee. No, Mike Noeth, the referee, is down there trying to tend to the two of them. Now Blum, with a big smile on his face, heads over to the penalty box.
Goes over to Bork at the left point, a drive and a save by Peters. He scrambles now and smothers the puck. Now Hatcher starts pushing and shoving, and as he grabs onto his man, Joyce, Cam Neely comes rushing in from behind and grabs onto Hatcher, pulling him away. The defensemen haven't come in from the points yet. Now they arrive, and Larson and Bork walk into the scene. So we know the faceoff will be outside the zone. They waited on direction from the Bruin bench, and Terry O'Reilly told them to go on in just in case. Here's Larson up ahead to Casper. 2 minutes to go in the first period. Now over to Dale Hunter. Francischetti knocks Linsman down. Adams across the blue line. Tries to get in past Blum. Blum takes him out. Jay Miller has the puck now for Boston. Francischetti nails him to the boards. Now Wesley trying to move it out. Kept in by Greg Adams to Larry Murphy at the point. Now a tie-up back at the blue line. Miller pounces on Larry Murphy, but they break it up. At the side of the goal, a shot by Adams, wide of the net. Miller goes after it. Murphy chased by Miller. There's a delayed penalty call coming up against Boston. And Miller swings his stick now at Francischetti. Scott Stevens gets in there. Now Francischetti and Linsman hang on to one another, and it looks like they're going to go. And a big pileup right in front of the penalty boxes with no actual punches thrown yet. There was already going to be a Boston minor penalty. Willie Plett is on the ice, and he's got a grip on Stevens. And Francischetti winds up on top of one of the Bruins. I think he's got Linsman right out there at center ice. Now Plett tries to grab at Scott Stevens and starts throwing punches at his head. Stevens' helmet has come off, and Stevens with a bear hug just holding on to Willie Plett. And here's that right in front of the Boston bench. Now Plett's going after Stevens' jersey, and Scott Stevens is so strong, he's just holding Plett with a bear hug, and that really does not allow Plett to get much going in the way of any punches. He's hit him a couple times in the back of the head, but Stevens hasn't suffered too badly from that, I can assure you. Stevens just holding on, and now trying to swing in a few punches of his own, but he doesn't want to do too much of that since Plett's wearing the helmet. And the linesmen pull them apart now. Willie Plett, a bigger player than Scott Stevens, but I think Scott had some strength on him there because he was holding Plett in a bear hug that would not allow Plett to do any damage at all. Terry O'Reilly starts jawing at Scott Stevens, and this is exactly the problem that happens the way the penalty boxes and benches and dressing rooms are arranged here in the Garden. Here's that action with Murphy, with Miller climbing on top of him. Leads it to Peterson to the blue line. Gartner taken out by Peterson, and Gartner turns around and high sticks Peterson in retaliation. Nothing called.
Keeps a tremendous streak going with 9 goals, 11 assists in his last 16 games. There's the big hit by Mike Gartner on Nevin Marquardt.
Penalty about to expire. Peters makes the save and covers it up. Langway tried to help out by sending it right onto the pads of Peters. Jay Miller dumps it back inside the Washington zone, and Scott Stevens skates right over it, but Peters was alert to that and is able to stop it. Now Jay Miller and Bobby Gould hang on right in front of the Washington net, and Miller takes a swing at Adams, who has stuck his nose in there to try and break it up. Stevens' helmet has come off. He and Crowder, or rather Marquardt, nose to nose, talking it over, and now the linesmen pull everyone apart. And Adams and Miller hang on, and Adams is getting punched by Miller. Greg Adams still has not dropped his gloves, and if Adams can hang on, it'll turn out to be a wise move, but he's got to protect himself, and now Miller starts landing them again, and Adams is unable to get any punches off, although he has dropped his glove. Now we'll see what comes out of this.
Yeah,
does Adams get anything, and does Miller get more? Miller, I think, should get an instigating penalty here, as well as a 5-minute fighting major. And we'll see what Adams gets. He's being taken to the penalty box, so we'll have the calls for you when we come back. That means Washington will wind up with a 3-minute power play as soon as Adams comes out of the box.
I tell you, Jay Miller may have gotten a little more than he bargained for as well. Greg Adams suffering from the flu. Those two going basically cheek to cheek right there, so he could come away with more than just a 5-minute major for fighting. The call certainly upsets Terry O'Reilly, but Miller was the guy who wanted to get things going. He got it. Greg Adams never got the gloves off until very late, and I guess that's how Mike Noah saw it. Rick Middleton, as Mike mentioned, is playing in his 1,000th National Hockey League game, is talking to referee Mike Noah about what he feels the injustice in the calls.
And it's cleared out of the zone all the way back to the Washington line. Neely hustling in, slashed by Hatcher. Oh, and Stevens came in and just wailed on Neely, knocking him to the ice, and nothing's called. Here comes Gartner starting out. He's hooked to the ice. There'll be a penalty call here against Boston. Reed Larson tries to go after Ridley. Larson is furious as he hooked Mike Gartner down on the play, and the Bruins want to know why wasn't there a penalty when Neely was slammed to the ice by Stevens at the other end. Well, here comes the rush here on the play by Neely. When I saw this happen, I thought Stevens had to have been guilty of some kind of foul. Look at the benefit of this replay. It's a clean hit in my book.
I agree. I mean, it didn't look like he charged, didn't look like he had the extra strides for the charge. He lowered the shoulder and got the clean hit. If he comes up with the elbow, if he comes up with anything else, now you can maybe complain about Hatcher with the slash. They were going at Scott Stevens.
We first saw it like this, and by the time Stevens came into the picture, that was the first I saw of Stevens, and you'd have to think it'd be a charging or something. But looking at it on the replay, it looked very good. And Bobby Gould, the puck cleared all the way in, and Pete Peters hangs on to it as Miller tries to work it free from his stick. Franciscetti is knocked down by Larson on the play, and now Franciscetti gets a shot from Crowder. Crowder and Franciscetti hang on, and Larson jumps in on top of him. Larson jumped in and instigated all that. Greg Adams and Casper are holding one another away, but Larson was the man Franciscetti wanted to talk to, and just as he came in there, all of a sudden Larson jumped in on top of the two players that were already involved. Now Bobby Gould and Jay Miller start to swing with one another.
Scott Stevens is right there with Jay Miller.
Larson tries to throw a punch. Now he's going to come over and grab Stevens. Gould winds up with Miller, and Stevens is the man for Washington who wants to talk with Jay Miller.
Mike, it was Crowder, though, who got this whole thing started. Pat Tapuzzo had Lou Franceschetti in tow. Franceschetti coming up, glaring at Larson after getting knocked down from behind, and it's Crowder who just comes running in and knocked both Franceschetti and DiPuzzo down. And then, as you mentioned, Larson gets in there. But Pat DiPuzzo had hold of Franceschetti. No need for Crowder. Now here they go.
This is Franceschetti and Crowder in the corner.
And Franceschetti has him down. Lou Franceschetti giving away size and weight and gets Crowder down.
They pull him apart. Crowder gets up and is hopping mad. Franceschetti's been contained. They're both going to go to the penalty boxes now. Time of the call is 2:14 of the third period. And they're going to take Crowder.
Well, they were taking Franceschetti more towards the Capitals players bench.
It looked like they were taking Crowder all the way into the Bruin dressing room, but now they put him in the penalty box, and they may just be holding them there until they actually send them to the dressing rooms. Now here's Larson also going into the penalty box, so it looks as though Larson and Crowder are off the ice for Boston. There's a break in the action. Ken Linsman flip-flops it into the Washington zone, and Peters takes it, hit by Neely as he plays the puck over to Bob Gould. And Peters, now Peters hits Janney with his stick as he goes by the net.
Here's a look at the activity involving Pete Peters. Pete Peters has the puck out of the net, so in theory, he certainly is allowed to be checked, but he doesn't like it.
Back come the Bruins. Here's Marquardt. Stevens had him lined up for a check, but Marquardt jumped at the last moment. They overcame Boston's rough stuff and held on and played good disciplined hockey to win against the Bruins here in the Boston Garden.